I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Mark.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before, I'm just going to share a couple quick remarks before our guests come. And I know there's going to be an appropriate time to recognize the chairman here in the future, but since this is your last meeting, LF, I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the Advancement Committee for all you've done for us during the campaign and just during all of our work. So LF, thank you very much for all.
Thank you.
So I'm glad to have Donna Henry and Steve Farmer and several students here with us this morning. The purpose of their participation in the Advancement Committee this morning is to talk a little bit about the impact of the Bicentennial Scholarship Fund that we created a number of years ago. For those of you who are new to the board, the Bicentennial Scholarship Fund was created at the end of 2016 as a way for the university to co-invest with donors to increase the overall scholarship endowment for the university. To put a little historical perspective on this, when I started at the university in 2014, the total amount of money being raised for scholarships that year was less than $1 million. So this was something that we felt we needed to invest in, and the Strategic Investment Fund was a great resource to provide the matching funds to scholarship support. When President Ryan arrived, we set an ambitious goal of trying to hit $750 million in total impact in scholarships through the Bicentennial Scholarship Fund. And when I mean total impact, that means private philanthropy and matching funds from the university. I'm thrilled to announce that about a month ago, we closed the Bicentennial Scholarship Fund because we had hit a total impact of $770 million for scholarships in this campaign, both for graduate students, for undergraduates, and also tied to athletics. As a reminder, 2 points: we do not include matching funds in our fundraising totals since those are institutional dollars, but the total impact was $750, and we've actually, due to the generosity of our alumni and friends, we have created 750 new endowments through this program. And when you think about an endowment, that endowment could support one student, it could support 30 students, depending on the size of the endowment. So again, we thought it would be helpful to have both Chancellor Henry and also Steve Farmer and several students talk about the benefit of this, not just to the university here in Charlottesville, but also to our College of Wise. So with that, I'll turn it over to Donna.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here today just to talk to you about the impact of the Bicentennial Scholarships at UVA Wise. So we're part of Mark's bigger numbers that he talked about, but since the campaign, UVA Wise has established 98 Bicentennial Scholars Funds with gifts and pledges of $31,600,000. 13 of those scholarships qualified for the 100% matching funds, and 85 qualified for 50% matching funds. And once all of the pledges are fulfilled, the Bicentennial matching funds will total $27 million. So the total impact at Wise is $58,782,000. So that's huge for us and a very big impact. And to think about that, so since the 2017-2018 academic year, 1,436 students have received over $8 million in scholarships from these bicentennial-related scholarship endowments. In the very first year that we awarded them, there were 4 students, and this past year there were 332 students on scholarship funds. And given the fact that if we look at degree-seeking students at UVA Wise, this year there were 1,300 degree-seeking students. That's a huge impact when you think about the bicentennial scholarships. And then today, and if you think about the campaign, so UVA Wise, like UVA, we just finished, or we're wrapping up our campaign. Our goal was $100 million. And right now we're at $103.6 million in our bicentennial campaign. So we're thrilled to have surpassed our goal as well. And when I think about our goal was to raise $35 million in academic scholarships, and so the fact that with the total impact we're over close to $60 million, again, is a big impact. But today we'll talk about the Carl Smith Bicentennial Scholarships. So early on in the campaign, when the matching dollars were available, I met with Hunter Smith, with the goal of creating a bicentennial fund at WISE. And Hunter committed $10 million to this fund with the goal of recruiting students and that they would actually have a full ride scholarship for all 4 years in WISE. So those $10 million were matched with another $10 million, so it was a $20 million endowment for that bicentennial fund. And in the following year, we were able to recruit 25 students to come to the college for that first cohort of bicentennial scholars. Right now at the college, we have 110 students enrolled in and receiving full ride scholarships from the Smith Scholar Fund. So the impact is huge. It's helped students to achieve their goals and to be successful. So that's pretty incredible. And now you're actually going to have the opportunity to meet one of our Carl Smith scholars, and that is Miss Olivia Baker. She is a UVA WISE Carl W. Smith Bicentennial Scholar, a native of Lee County, and a 4-year member and team leader of the UVA WISE women's golf team. Olivia just graduated this past spring from UVA WISE at the May 25 commencement. She has majors in government, political science, and psychology, and I will allow Olivia to tell you the rest of her story, which is pretty incredible. So, Miss Olivia Baker.
Hello everyone, my name is Olivia Baker and I'm a 2025, Hello everyone, my name is Olivia Baker and I'm a 2025 graduate of the University of Virginia's College at WISE. I want to express how honored I am to stand before you today in efforts to give you a glimpse into how meaningful the past 4 years at UVA WISE have been to me and to my life. To preface, I grew up in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in Lee County, Virginia, in the small town of Jonesville. My small town upbringing fostered a strong sense of community, strength, determination, and hard work. My youth was spent around family, friends, being a devoted student, and giving my time and perseverance to my golf game. As time grew near to my senior year of high school, I knew I wanted to pursue a college education. Therefore, despite having many offers to play college golf, I ultimately decided and felt led to pursue my golf and educational careers at UVA WISE. I chose UVA WISE because it was close to home, affordable, and provided me with a well-rounded liberal arts education, while also allowing me to continue playing the sport I loved at the collegiate level. Despite UVA WISE's affordability, I did not qualify for financial aid and sought scholarship opportunities in hopes of lessening the financial burden off of my shoulders. I looked to the Carl W. Smith Bicentennial Scholarship, applied, and desperately hoped and prayed I would be chosen as a recipient. To my prevail, I was chosen, and it became a newfound beacon of opportunity, excitement, and determination for the next years to come. I came into UVA WISE as a nervous yet bright-eyed freshman. However, in credit hours, I was classified as a junior. The stresses of upperclassmen classes and being a student athlete is unmatched. Yet the generosity of the Carl W. Smith Bicentennial Scholarship allowed me to spend the full 4 undergraduate years and use all of my NCAA eligibility, graduate with 2 degrees in psychology and government and minor in biology, while simultaneously fostering my growth and development into the person that I am today. In addition, the scholarship allowed me to devote time to campus clubs and organizations and give back to the community through community service opportunities. Furthermore, the Carl W. Smith Bicentennial Scholarship gave me the opportunity to study abroad in Ireland. Without the scholarship, I don't know if I would have ever, at such a young age, seen the beauties of the world outside of the United States. That experience alone is one like no other and one that I will cherish for the rest of my life. During my time at UVA WISE, I was the team captain of the women's golf team, head research assistant in the Little Cavaliers Child Development Lab, publicity coordinator for the National Society of Leadership and Success, president and student board member of the Wesley Foundation, a peer leader, a tutor, and a women's golf representative on the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. My experiences at UVA WISE all share one common influence, the Carl W. Smith Bicentennial Scholarship. Through being a recipient of this scholarship, I was able to have a full college experience, make lasting relationships with my peers and professors, engage in opportunities that fostered my leadership skills, and take classes in a variety of departments, which set the foundations for critical thinking, professional skills, and an empathetic heart to make the world a better place. I reflect back on my time at UVA Wise with humility, gratitude, and a full heart. I leave UVA Wise with a newfound confidence in my voice of advocacy in hopes of one day pursuing a career in law and having a full life devoted to public service. I'm forever indebted to UVA Wise for the amazing undergraduate experience I've had, and I give my profound appreciation to the Carl W. Smith Bicentennial Scholarship for playing a monumental role in my experience, in addition to my other scholarships that afforded me the opportunity to be a successful student and athlete. Lastly, I would like to share that this experience has both inspired and deeply impacted me to hopefully one day bestow the same opportunity to other aspiring students as it was done to me. I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.
Olivia, thank you for the story you shared and how you've gone about your life. It's really inspiring to hear you talk. And thanks to all of you for giving me the chance to be with you today. Chairman Payne and all the members of the board, it's always an honor to be with you. And Chancellor Henry, Mr. Luellen, it's always great to be here with you too. And it will be my pleasure and my honor in a moment to introduce you all to Corinne Lau-King, our outstanding Blue Ridge Scholar. Before Corinne takes the podium, please just let me take a moment to thank you all for your support for the Bicentennial Scholars Initiative. And I would really also like to thank all of the donors who've made Olivia's story and Corinne's and all the other stories possible. It is really hard to overstate the difference that these scholarships are making and will continue to make in the lives of our students, in the common life of our schools, and I think far beyond in the life of the Commonwealth and the world. These scholarships make it possible for great students from all walks of life to join us here on grounds and make the most of their time here and to leave us ready to make their way in the world. I think it's important, though, to remember that the impact of these scholarships really goes far beyond the financial support they provide. You know, when students earn admission to UVA, they can be proud of what they've accomplished. They can be excited about the road ahead. You know, they can and they should, because they have more than earned those feelings. But even the greatest students in the world, the best prepared, can also be nervous. They can be unsure of themselves. They can doubt themselves. And for many of these students, a scholarship isn't just money. It's a sign. It is a sign that we have faith in them. It's a sign that we think they should have faith in themselves. And that's important, because when a nervous student, a doubting student, finds the courage to do all that he or she can do, when students find the courage to do what they might not otherwise do, when that happens, everyone around them benefits. And Corinne Lau-King is a great example of how this works. Corinne had other good choices coming out of Page High School in Greensboro, North Carolina, but her Blue Ridge Scholarship made it possible for her to say yes to UVA. She earned her degree last month after making everyone around her better every single day she was here. So Corinne, thank you for choosing UVA, and thank you for being here to share your story.
Hi, everyone. My name is Corinne Lau-King, and I'm a recent graduate of UVA with a degree in biology. I first want to thank UVA Advancement and everyone who invited me to be here to speak to the Board of Visitors. This is so exciting and special. I also want to thank my mom, who's here. She's in the back, but it was really awesome to have her here today. And she's the reason I'm here, too. So as a kid, I actually grew up coming to my mom's reunions at UVA, and I realized how beautiful it was here. I realized how much UVA felt like home immediately upon stepping on grounds. And it was a beautiful place to live and study, but it also was such an exceptional academic challenge for me to shoot for in high school. As an out-of-state student from North Carolina, I worked really tirelessly, and some might even say crazily, in my last few years of high school to get perfect grades, do perfect service work, really perfect everything about my UVA application. I was crazy about it. And I applied early decision, which means I'm committed to going if they say yes to me. And I was absolutely elated when I got in. I even broke down in tears, and all of my family just hooted and hollered all over my house. My best friend immediately came over from her house and brought me this huge gift basket of orange and blue things to celebrate me, which was so exciting. It truly was one of the happiest moments of my life. Yet, after feeling like I had met this huge goal in my young career, I was soon made aware of how difficult it would be for my family to afford UVA. My mom told me that without scholarships, we really wouldn't be able to pay any out-of-state tuition. And that was really upsetting. I was incredibly upset because I had been given this amazing opportunity. I'd strived for it all of my 4 years of high school, all of my 4 years of middle school. I was so excited to go to UVA. And I was being denied one of these biggest accomplishments just because of finances I had no control of. Both of my parents are first-generation college graduates, and I've seen the effort they have committed to getting all 3 of their kids through college, which has been really inspiring. And as my mom spent months going back and forth with financial aid and university registrar, I gained so much perspective on just how important and impactful need-based financial aid is. In June, I was awarded the Access UVA and Blue Ridge scholarships through the Bicentennial Scholars Program, which basically meant I was finally able to say I was going to UVA after November through June of being up in the air about it. So I was finally so excited to be a Wahoo. Finally becoming a student, this perspective really allowed me to truly appreciate every moment I was given here. Among other things, I became a student worker at Cavalier Connect under UVA advancement, calling donors and asking them to give back to the university. I did field biology research at Mountain Lake Biological Station in the mountains, looked at redback salamanders all day and little fish in the streams. That was really cool. I joined a lab in the medical school in the pharmacology department, looking at epilepsy networks in mouse models of the brain, and that was really, really cool and super hard. And I surrounded myself, most importantly, with people that were different than me. I deepened my love for science and for teaching others about it, and I can look back with so much thankfulness of how much I was able to learn here and teach others. I can now recognize how crucial scientific research is to continue advancing our society for the betterment of all of its members. And specifically, I can now say with a 4-year biology degree from the prestigious Virginia, biology teaches us that diversity makes every ecosystem stronger. And I believe that is true for UVA as well. Upon graduation, I got several messages from friends in high school and old camp counselors that I hadn't talked to in years telling me how proud that they were that I graduated from the place that I had been dreaming about for my entire life. I again reflected on my journey, and I felt so proud of myself. It felt like UVA was meant to be my home all along. The scholarships that I received allowed me to flourish at UVA, and I will always be a fierce advocate for all of these financial aids that allow thousands of other first-gen low-income students to make this their home too. Thank you, guys.
Corinne, Steve, Olivia, Donna, thank you very much for the time. Corinne's mom, thank you for being with us today, and thank you for entrusting your daughter with us. But thank you, really appreciate it. As we think about the impact of the Bicentennial Scholarship Fund, I think that's just a good summary. And the benefit is this will continue on in perpetuity, so we'll be able to tell these stories for generations and generations to come. So for my presentation today, obviously at all of our advancement committee meetings, I give a brief overview of fundraising progress of the year and also in the campaign. Recently, since we are coming to the end of the Honor the Future campaign, a number of our volunteer fundraising foundations have asked me to come and give a little more in-depth overview of the total impact of the campaign with a bit more granularity than what I have traditionally done. So I was asked that I also do this here today. So I'm happy to walk through some of this. Obviously, if there's time at the end, I'm glad to take questions. I'd first like to start with the team. Obviously, we've had a great team across grounds who have done exceptional work. This group up on the screen is my senior leadership team. These 10 individuals run everything from advancement operations to major gifts to the health affairs, Amy Carr, all of you know, and other different areas of my organization. I think one of the greatest strengths we've had in this campaign has been the stability of leadership throughout the entire process. This is a relationship business, and understanding that folks that have a lot of experience, not only in advancement, but also at the university. And so a couple data points on these 10, I won't go through each one of them, but a couple data points. This team has over 215 years of experience in advancement, 185 years combined at the University of Virginia, and 130 years of experience in UVA advancement. So a special thank you to all of them for their work on this campaign. Also, I wanted to call out the campaign executive committee. Many of you have heard from Peter Grant, the chair of the Honor the Future campaign in the past, but this slide shows all the members of the campaign executive committee that have been with us since the public launch in 2019. Obviously, many familiar names on that list. Peter is here with us today. I don't want to embarrass Peter, but I was thinking back the other night of the selection of Peter as the campaign chair and the vetting process that was done. I think I met with about 150 individuals or organizations to talk about who they thought should be the best person to lead the campaign. And Peter Grant was that person over and over again. Peter has served in that role the entire time. And again, I'd like to thank Peter for his service as the chair of the campaign. I'd also like to call out a data point on the people that serve on the campaign executive committee. It's about 35 people. And when you look at the total philanthropy of this group in this campaign, including money they have given themselves or they have secured on behalf of the university, that group has committed $1.2 billion of our capital campaign. So this slide I like to refer to as BC, or before campaign, and give a little bit of historical perspective about where we have come as an organization and the generosity of our alumni and friends. So again, a little bit of backstory here for those of you who are new. When we were launching this campaign, one of the things that we felt was very important was to receive some outside counsel to think about how we should be thinking about our next campaign. So we hired Grensebach, Gleer & Associates, the top fundraising consulting firm in higher education in the country, to come in and do an exhaustive study, both quantitatively and qualitatively, about our operation. And what we're doing well, what we weren't doing well, but also to help us think about what our goals should be for the campaign, what they thought was realistic, and they looked at, again, a bunch of quantitative data. This is a couple of the highlights, I would just say, is the feedback that came back from them. First of all, for the 5 years leading up to the campaign, our total commitments on average per year was $276 million. That's total commitments across all entities at the university on average for the 5 years leading up. We were behind. We were tracking behind our public peers, we were tracking behind our private peers, and we were tracking behind in cash flow, total commitments across the board. That was a pretty staggering bit of reality that we received at that time. The second thing was there had been a bit of a tradition of top-down goal setting. In other words, start with a macro number and then assign goals to the schools and units around grounds to hit that number. We decided to do something a bit differently then and really have a bottoms-up and top-down goal-setting process for how we thought about this campaign. Really look at the strategies and goals of each one of our units, what it would take to monetize that, and then how could we realize that for each one of our schools. The third there were questions around, and challenges, some of you have heard, around collaboration and coordination. We had been a very traditionally decentralized organization. There was some interest in making some things more centralized, and how did we find the right happy medium between that organization and have a hybrid organization that would strengthen everything across the university. This next data point was an interesting one. There were 155 different technologies just in the advancement community alone that were not talking to each other. So imagine separate databases, email communication systems, et cetera, across the grounds. The second to last point was lack of major gifts. Again, as we all know, we have a very generous alumni base at the university. We have a very generous group of parents. But to put some perspective on this, in the 5 years leading up to the start of the Honor the Future campaign, we were averaging 25 gifts a year of $1 million or more, and 260 gifts of $100,000 or more. Again, that was the yearly average for the 5 years leading up to the campaign. I'll talk more about that here in a minute. And finally, the study came back, as we've discussed a lot, by the consultants that they didn't feel that we as an institution were willing to make some of the changes that were needed, willing to make the investments needed to grow the private philanthropy at the university, and came back with a recommendation that we set a goal no higher than $3 billion. So as I said, some of this information was a little tough to hear, but we decided to look at 5 different areas of focus. Alumni and student engagement is one, collaboration with schools and units second, operational improvements across the entire team, both those that work for me and also in the foundations as well. Fourth, co-investment around strategic priorities, and the fifth one, improved performance. So I'm going to bounce through each one of these very quickly. Around alumni and student engagement, the first thing we did was create a pan-university working group that had representation from the schools and units across grounds, as well as my team, to really think about how we can be doing better in this regard, how can we think about coordinating things, how can we have education and professional development about what is being done around the country. We had tons of listening sessions, we had a number of training sessions to think about how we were going to go forward. The second thing is we got more creative around our marketing and communication strategies. As you've heard me say before, we host about 1,400 events a year for the advancement community. Those are alumni relations events, those are development events, but they weren't coordinated in thinking through necessarily how could we even think about monetizing some of those. For example, something that has been very common at a lot of institutions around the country for certain events would be just to essentially have a cover charge. It seems like a funny thing, but a $5 donation if you're coming to the event. And those were some ways that we were able to get increased participation around a number of the events that we had. The most important thing to me on this slide is actually the middle one, and that is the enhanced engagement of our student body. As we all know, we have a very engaged student body. We heard from a couple of them here a few minutes ago, but we weren't leveraging their work with us as much as we should. So we thought about a number of ways, and we have implemented a number of ways to engage them more, but I think the signature event was something that we created, which is called Who's Grateful. Many of you have received thank you notes in the mail from students for your own private philanthropy. While that was great, it was also a very inefficient way to do things. A lot of tracking down of students, trying to find them, asking them and educating them on who the donor is, where they are, their background. So we decided to have a coordinated event. We actually have it in McIntyre Amphitheater every year. This year, 1,300 of our students actually participated in this. They came, they wrote letters, they did videos to donors, and followed up with them to thank them for their private philanthropy. We actually had 4,000 letters written that day just to our donors from our students. We also invested more time in thinking about class giving and starting the education process around private philanthropy while they're undergraduates and not waiting till they become an alum. So I'm happy to share an example of this, which I shared at reunions this past weekend. The class of 2025, who just walked the lawn here a couple weeks ago, shattered all giving records for the highest participation and giving of any class that we have on record at the university. Over 2,200 members of the class of 2025 made a gift, and 51% of the class gave. That's the highest percentage of a class in over 20 years, and I think it's also a pretty strong signal by our student body of their impression of the leadership and organization of the university in its current state. But I think as we go forward, it'll be a great opportunity to keep them engaged as we go forward. The fourth point was undergraduate participation rates. I've talked a little bit about this before, but as you look at undergraduate participation rates, they're dropping all over the country and have been for a decade. This was something that we decided to put more emphasis on about the midway through the campaign, through some of the tactics I mentioned before, but we had dropped to about a 14% participation rate. While that is good compared to a number of our peer institutions, the national average right now with peer institutions is 12%, but we thought we could do better, and I'm happy to say that we're now tracking up at about between 19 and 20% undergraduate alumni participation. And finally, this point is a little outdated since this deck was done about 9 days ago. We are now at 257,000 unique donors to the campaign, and as I said at the last meeting, that's pretty impressive when you think we have 275,000 living alumni. On to collaboration. Again, I mentioned this a little bit before, but this has been a high focus of ours since the beginning of the campaign. How do we find that right balance between centralized and decentralized organization? And I think the hybrid model for Virginia is the best model. There are some institutions that are very decentralized, some others that are very centralized, but we really spent a lot of time thinking about this and how to do it the right way. I'm happy to say that as of now, 8 of our 12 schools actually have a reporting structure up through me and a few other major units as well. This is a great collaborative effort. None of them have been done through mandate. All of them have been done through an MOU. Performance evaluations are done between my office and the dean's office or the respective leader, and it's really a collaborative effort. It also provides budget relief because there are certain things that we're able to do at scale with the volume that we have. It could be shared administrative support, could be technology and infrastructure, could be real estate. And so it's been a benefit to those units. I will also say it's been a benefit to these units on performance. The average growth in private philanthropy in these groups since they have formed these partnerships has been 200%. So a 200% growth in private philanthropy. We also have a number of units that may not need full-scale oversight of their alumni relations program. They may need help with certain aspects of it. So we now have 31 areas of the university that we oversee centrally their annual giving programs. We also have 25 of them which we oversee their direct marketing programs. Again, none of this was done by mandate. It was essentially around building a culture of a center of excellence where people would want to partner, and from there we would help them and guide them. It also provides a lot of economies of scale. I know Mr. Manning was talking about this in the Health System Board meeting this morning. When we're buying things like paper for direct mail pieces or even some things like that, when we can buy them, and with digital printing and communications, there's a lot more ways we can segment now and have economies of scale that are budget relieving. Finally, on this part of collaboration, I think this is going to be a little bit in the weeds, but one of the things that we did in 2017 before this campaign started was essentially develop a new rules of the road. So new policies and protocols for the entire community, and all the community was involved with, which has helped a lot on traffic control and other things in our work. I talked a few minutes ago about the operations. We obviously spent a lot of time talking about gifts and significant gifts to the institution, but it all is put together by a very significant operational team. When you think about it, we process over 125,000 gifts a year at a minimum. We also do everything from stocks to wire transfers to technology to thousands and thousands of communication pieces. But this point I want to start with is on the tech stack. I mentioned here a few minutes ago, and I saw Mr. Cuccinelli nodding his head at the moment when I said 155 different technologies that didn't connect with each other. We have been able to narrow that down to 35. So, and we've, again, done it not by mandate, but by collaboration. So we created Julie Featherstone, our Senior Vice President for Advancement Operations, I guess about 7 or 8 years ago, created a task force of colleagues from around grounds, from the foundations, from my team, to essentially evaluate all technology tools and put some rules in place about buying new technology tools, that they couldn't do them without going through this committee. The committee ultimately reports up to me and I make the final decision. But I will say that it's been a big benefit to us because we were able to cut out about 120 different technologies, which again has been budget relieving back to schools and units around grounds. And we've also just, there's a lot of personnel that goes into managing those things as well. So that's been a big benefit. And the other thing I would just say is we think about technology. Julie's just done an amazing job in this and leading this effort. As you think about these tools that are obviously coming online a lot now with AI and a variety of different things, there were a lot of people who jumped in the space a few years ago, jumped in a bit prematurely as you think about things like CRM solutions that maybe some of you have in your own organizations. At that time, everyone was jumping to Salesforce. And I thought that it was something that we should jump into too, to update our CRM. It was a little bumpy at the beginning around the country, and some institutions were spending upwards of $20 or $30 million on their implementation of their new CRM solutions. Thankfully, we waited. We spent our time tightening the tech stack. We spent our time thinking about how we were going to organize all the data. We are now in the process of a CRM implementation. We're almost done with it. Most institutions wait until a campaign is over to start. I asked the team to start a couple years ago so that it would be done when this campaign ends and we're ready for the next one. And I will tell you that we spent about $6 million and not $30 million on this total implementation. Also, gift processing. This has been, again, something that's a bit of back of office. Some of you have been on the board for a while, have heard me talk about this. But this was an area that we had some challenges for a number of years. It was such a challenge that at one point, our gift processing error rate we had a 10% error rate. So in other words, when someone made a gift, 10% of them, there was an error rate. And this was just not acceptable. Best in class is a 1% error rate. So we decided to outsource this about 5 years ago to a best-in-class service. We worked in close partnership with ITS at the university to do this. Some of you may see when you send a check, it goes to Boone, Iowa. That is our processing center. We have saved $1 million a year since implementing that outsourced gift processing. And the error rate I mentioned before, it was at 10%. Best in class is considered 1%. We now have an error rate of 0.1%. So again, not only have we saved resources, but also been more effective. The third point on here is professional development opportunities. I think there's a lot of institutions, obviously like a lot of organizations and companies, that spend a lot on professional development, and we thought we needed to as well. However, a lot of them spend money sending people out to conferences and airfares and what have you, and conferences fees. And we decided about 6 years ago that we were going to do more of this ourselves. So I would tell you, and I say this humbly, I think Virginia has the best professional development program for alumni relations and fundraising staff in the country. We actually host about 125 different opportunities here on grounds every year, which saves people having to travel. Some of them are done by industry experts. Also, some of it are done by our colleagues here at the university. I'm now going to talk a little bit about co-investments. I mentioned it earlier when we were talking about the Bicentennial Scholarship Fund, but when you think about the investments we've made through the Strategic Investment Fund, that has been one of the biggest game changers we've had in this campaign. It has set a cultural component that we are co-investing with our donors around things of strategic importance to the university. So when you look at the total impact of this, as I mentioned earlier, the Bicentennial Scholarship Fund was created in December 26. There was an initial investment by the board and by the university of $100 million. That was utilized by June of 2018. And then we pressed forward and made some additional investments in that over the next several years. Again, we have surpassed our goal of $750 million and have hit $770 million in that area. And as a reminder for those of you who are new to the board, in this program, we matched gifts for need-based scholarships, 50 cents on the dollar, up to $1 million, and dollar for dollar after $1 million. On the Bicentennial Professorship Fund, as it states there, we have had total impact of over $560 million. This includes private philanthropy and matching funds. Our original goal was $500 million for this. The program alone has created 110 new endowments for faculty support. Again, some of those are larger than others, but they will support 139 different faculty lines at the university, the endowments ranging from $3 million up to $10 million. Outside of this, we also have gifts that maybe were through a planned gift or another vehicle that supported faculty support. So we've had in this campaign 167 new endowments to support faculty, which will fund 202 endowed positions. To put a bit of historical perspective on this, prior to the start of the campaign, we were averaging 4 to 5 a year. Finally, on the Cavalier Fund, I've talked about this in the previous meeting. We had student recipients last time. The total impact of the Cavalier Fund is now at $18 million. This is a fund that we've created to help students who are on financial aid fully experience their time on grounds, whether it be helping offset club memberships or other things that they're involved with, Greek life, et cetera. Our goal is to hit $30 million between private philanthropy and also in matching funds. So in total, the impact of the co-investment strategy that we implemented has been about just shy of $1.4 billion. coming to the end here on the strategies that we implemented, this slide is about improved performance. And again, this was something that hit pretty hard when we had the outside report done here at the beginning of the campaign. As you'll see here, that says $712 million in commitments for this fiscal year. This number, again, is about 9 days old. That number is now $800 million in total commitments for the fiscal year. And again, as I mentioned earlier, at the start of the campaign, we were averaging $276 million a year in total commitments. So that $800 million, just to put percentages on it, that's for this year, we are up 42% year over year. We're up 56% over our 5-year average, and we're up 190% a year in total commitments compared to before the campaign started. And as I said this morning, the campaign is not over. As far as cash flow goes, it says here that we were at $378 million here about 10 days ago. We are now at $391 million, and we're tracking about 17% ahead year over year. And we're also over our 5-year average by 13%. I think this is the point where I get a bit more granular, and excuse me for that, but I think that going back to the conversation I mentioned at the beginning by the assessment from the outside consultants, we were not performing at the level that we needed to regarding major gifts to the university. And I always say that a major gift is in the eyes of the donor, not in the eyes of the institution. But when you think about this, for today's sake, I'm looking at gifts of $100,000 or more and gifts of $1 million or more. So as a reminder, at the beginning of the report, I mentioned that our average in the 5 years leading up to the start of the campaign was 25 gifts of $1 million or more a year. As of today, we're at 125 million gifts this fiscal year since June 30 at $1 million or more. And again, I think that number will probably be closer to 135. That is the highest year we've ever had on gifts of 7 figures or more. Last year was the first year we broke 100, and that was at 103. So we're up about 30 gifts of $1 million or more. When you look at gifts of $100,000 or more, I mentioned that before the campaign started, we were averaging 260 gifts a year of $100,000 or more. Again, this slide is a little out of date. We are now over 800 gifts this year in gifts of $100,000 or more. So you'll see that 5 times the amount of gifts at $1 million and 3 times the number of gifts at $100,000. For those of you who like to see where the funds have gone, this is kind of a basic pie chart that we thought would be helpful in just allocating the total commitments to the campaign in 3 different buckets. When the campaign was launched, we wanted this to be more of a campaign that was focused on endowment to help with the long-term stability of our budget. For those of you who, again, are not aware, approximately 21% of the annual operating budget of the university comes from either private philanthropy or the distribution off UVMCO. So obviously a very important part of funding our budget. You'll see that $2.92 billion of that, or about 49%, went to current operations in one capacity or another. It could be for a school or a unit or to the university. It could be athletics. 13%, or $790 million, went to capital, and a little under $2.25 billion was allocated to endowments.
Can I ask you about that? It's over here.
Yeah, sure.
You were going a little quick there for me, and I'm a fast-talking lawyer. So can you explain the operations piece again? I guess I'm just a little surprised that particularly larger donors would donate to operations as opposed to either endowments or capital.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, Mr. Cuccinelli. When I say operations, I don't mean, how we're cleaning the buildings. What I'm thinking about, these are current use funds. So it could be that maybe there's an academic program that somebody cares about. Maybe someone wants to provide current use funds to scholarships. It could be current use funds for athletics. It could be a grateful patient who wants to make a gift to a faculty member to help implement research. So, I think for us, the last campaign was a lot heavier focused on capital. That has been a focus of the last campaign. I think the current use at that level is pretty consistent of other institutions. But as you'll see, I think the big shift for us was less on the current use and more on the endowment. I think we're also seeing a generational change with some of our donors, depending on what they're looking at for how they want to see their philanthropy implemented. You know, when you look at an endowment, it's great for the long term of the university, but if they're paying it over 5 years, they may not see the benefit of their private philanthropy for 3 or 4 years until that endowment is actually funded. Some of them are wanting to see immediate response to their private philanthropy, which is where current use is a benefit. This next slide, I won't go through each of these, but as you look at this, this is a chart that shows, we put this in your packet every meeting, but thought we'd call it out for this. This is school and unit progress against their individual goals. You'll see that, I mean, obviously our goal was to surpass the $5 billion number for the university, but we also wanted to make sure that as many of our schools and units also hit their goals. So this is a list of all of the schools that have already surpassed it. And I will call out two. The Miller Center just surpassed their goal of $40 million here a couple weeks ago, and the School of Engineering and Applied Science, their goal of $250 million. They just hit it here as well for the week, and as I mentioned this morning, UVA Health hit their $1 billion goal. We only have, the Medical Center and School of Medicine has moved off this list. We only have 2 of the major units yet who have not hit their goal, and that both of them are within 10% of goal. That is the Batten School and the University Libraries. You know, why I just said to Mr. Cuccinelli that a lot of this has shifted a lot as we think about capital in private philanthropy. I just thought it would be good to reference the number of facilities that have been built or renovated on grounds that have been connected in some way to private philanthropy. When we were launching this campaign, some of these ideas were not there, but a lot of our donors had interest. You think about the master plan for athletics. You think about some of the work that's been done at Darden, but that's a full list. Private philanthropy did not fund all of those, but a significant portion of a number of them. Looking ahead, as I said before, as we talked about technology and infrastructure, you know, I think it was kind of a view in the 80s and 90s that when a campaign finishes, it stops and you take some time off and you launch your next one. We are already in the process of planning the next campaign for the university. That started a couple years ago, actually. We have done an assessment of all of our schools and units to look at where they've had strengths, weaknesses, and we'll be talking to them about that in the months to come. Obviously, we want to take some time to celebrate, and we'll be doing that here this fall. But again, with 21% of the budget coming from private philanthropy or UVMCO, this is something that's a permanent part of our work now. And the last slide I will have, and I will finish my remarks, is total gifts in the Honor the Future campaign. $5.95 billion. Again, as I mentioned a little bit ago, that number is a little bit outdated. I'm happy to announce, and I'm sure you'll be excited to hear, that we have now officially crossed $6 billion in the Honor the Future campaign. And not only did we cross $6 billion, we're actually over that number by $38 million. So still So in closing, I just want to take a moment to thank our donors, our 257,000 donors who have made this campaign possible. It's kind of amazing to think that we have doubled what the outside consultants have suggested and went $1 billion over, but it's all thanks to the number of people who have worked extremely hard across the grounds, and obviously to all of our donors who have been extremely generous. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that ends my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for that and for that presentation. And this is really good news. So we ended the year last meeting with maybe the best news we've had, and congratulations on that. I did want to also mention Peter Grant again and his committee and the work that they've done, Mark and his team and all the work that they've done. This is a great story of how to go about setting a very audacious goal, and then how to do the necessary planning and the hard work, and then not only making it but exceeding it. It would be a great case for the Darden School and others. So thank you for that. And certainly, let me thank President Ryan, because none of this would have happened if Jim Ryan hadn't pushed to make the goal $5 billion and not $3 billion, and then worked really hard to make it all happen. So Jim, thank you very much. Please give all these folks a round of applause. And I wanted to thank Donna and Steve. I think Steve's had to leave us, and also Olivia and Corinne for being a part of this today. And Olivia and Corinne have done a very nice job of reminding us what this money is used for and how these investments that we've made have worked. And so thank you very much for your stories. And I wanted to echo mostly and finally the appreciation to all of the alumni and the parents and friends of UVA, who are the ones who actually made all this happen. And we're so appreciative to everybody who's made substantial contributions, including many on our board. So let me then see if we've got any other matters, any other questions. We've just about out of time.
I have one quick question.
Okay.
Congratulations on achieving all these goals. It's fantastic. I had sort of a basic question, which is, could you just give a sentence or two on what it means to do a campaign? I mean, in other words, when I think about a university or a church or a hospital, they're sort of always raising money.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be, I'm just saying, like, when you say we did a campaign, now the campaign's over. I mean, I suppose if someone showed up with a big check, we would say, well, wait until the next campaign. I mean,
No.
I'm just trying to get, what does it mean that you're doing a campaign per se versus any other time? Is it just sort of marketing? Is it?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of planning and hard work that goes into it, but I think you get my question.
No, I get it. It's a great question, Mr. Whitmore. And just to clarify, if you make a gift on July 2nd, we're going to be happy to give it, take it and count it.
Well, there's no campaign.
No. I think it's a great question, Mr. Whitmore, and I think that as you think about this, I look at campaigns really as an organizing structures. I mean, there's a great quote by the former president of Georgetown that says, the job of a university president is to keep a university in a campaign all the time because it's not about the money, people behave better. Right. And I don't mean it about that as much as I think about it's an organizing structure to think about strategy. It's an organizing structure to think about what are your priorities, to think about how you fund them, to educate people. So yes, we're always in fundraising mode, but as you try to think about it, we talk a lot about the numbers, but overall, it's more about the overall strategy. But Jim, I don't know if you want to say anything else about that as well.
No, I think you captured it. I mean, the reality is that schools are essentially always in a campaign. There are quiet phases and there are active phases. And so as soon as this campaign ends, we'll effectively be in the quiet phase of the next campaign. And Mark's exactly right. I mean, there will be, I don't know how many years until the next campaign becomes active. But it's really at that stage that you hone in on your priorities, and not just a number goal, but what are you actually trying to raise funds for? And I think Mark's exactly right. I mean, the connection between strategy and fundraising is super important. And fundraising, a campaign is not just about organizing fundraising, it's about organizing the university in a sense in terms of where do you want to go? Where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years? Because that's what you're going to be going out and trying to raise money for.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But while I have the microphone, I just want to echo the thanks to everyone, including LF, for chairing this committee, to Peter Grant for his truly heroic efforts across many years, and to Mark for his leadership and management of a really phenomenal team. We would not be here without Mark and Peter in particular. So thank you.
Thank you all very much, and that concludes our advancement committee.